Hello, my name is Joseph Herline, and this video is my submission for the Tableau 2 project. To begin the project, we received an Excel spreadsheet containing a lot of data. The data pertain to a company's items sold, quantity of items sold, profits, and where they were sold, such as the region, state, city, and zip code. I began to analyze the data by looking at it inside of Excel. I used filters to sort the data to try and see if there was any relationship between the type of items or what the profits were or where they were sold. There wasn't a relationship that I could identify between inside of the data going this way, so I decided to look at it through a pivot table. The pivot table was a lot more helpful. It showed there was a relationship between the profit of each items and how many items were sold. And as this is for a business, we want to focus on profit, so I decided that's the direction I would go in when I started to analyze it inside of Tableau. Looking at the screen, you can see our data that was used inside of Tableau. You can see the country, region, state, zip code, city, where the sales happened, the dates, what department the items sold belonged to, and what the profit was for those items, along with the units sold. What I didn't see was a profit per unit. So was there a value to be found in certain items? Was there a correlation between the amount of something sold and the profits received? So what I did was create an additional column to show the profit per unit. And I got some interesting data out of this. Now, when we first received the information, we were warned that the data wasn't clean. There might be some errors. So before I went any further, I wanted to look through the data, make sure there weren't any anomalies, anything that stood out or could affect my overall results. One thing that popped up is, if you look here, over in Philadelphia, we sold table saws for a profit of $282,000. But we only sold 3 table saws, and the profit per unit was $94,000. We can look at several other instances of table saws being sold, and the profit per unit is nowhere close. So it's very possible that this data is erroneous. So here you can see the first worksheet I created. Before moving further with analyzing the data, I wanted to make sure there weren't any significant errors that could throw off my results. Here I created a set of bar graphs that show the units sold, the maximum profit per unit, and the average profit per unit. Some pretty basic coloring used. The darker, the grayer, the closer to white, the less it stands out, the safer the data is. As it turns darker and darker red, there might be issues where the average profit per unit versus the maximum profit per unit varies a lot. If we look over here, we can see that Arizona, we sold table saws. The average profit per unit of a table saw was $6,443 in the state of Arizona, but the maximum profit was $101,000. That is a huge difference between the amount of profit made selling the same item in the same state. Once the analysis is complete of all the data and recommendations are made, it would be a very good idea to verify the quality of this data. If the profits are incorrect, it will definitely impact the results. Now that you have my CYA, I'll move on to analyzing the data. Moving forward, we're more or less going to assume that the data is correct. So the next worksheet is the regional profit per item. So as you look, I broke down the sales based on regions. And then at the top, we go by year and department, and then further divide it based on the items inside of each department. Now, if you look from 2019 to 2020, The pattern of sales remains very similar between years. However, in 2020, the sales do start to drop off. So what we need to look at further is what caused that. Was there a change in the market? Do we have competition? Do people not need the same items this year that they needed last year? However, because it is 2019 into 2020, there's a pretty good chance that the culprit for this is COVID-19. Sales dropped out dramatically across the world in lots of markets due to COVID-19. So there's a good chance this was the cause here. This next worksheet gives us a view of the entire country, minus Hawaii and Alaska. And what you can see is the total amount of items sold per state and the average profit per state. So looking across the country, most states are pretty neutral in color, which implies that our sales are consistent from state to state. What you will see, if you move to California, Texas, New York, states with a denser population seem to have more sales. And that would track. Higher population means more consumable goods are needed. If you hover over each state, you can see the total number of units sold and the average profit per unit. On this worksheet, I used a packed bubble to display the differences in quantities of our best-selling items. Now, if you look, the circles give you a pretty good representation of the relationship between items sold. Looking at this, nationwide, our best-selling item is waterproofing. See saws, miter, table. Right behind that, you also have windows and doors. Our least-selling items are walls and fencing. On this worksheet, I went with the packed bubble graph again, but this time I am showing the average profit per item versus the quantity sold. What you'll see in this relationship is that the average profit per item is similar across all items. There's a few outliers, like this one's only $645 for average profit, and lumber is over $2,000, but the majority of items sit between $1,000 and $2,000. Moving on, we go to our dashboard. So I'm using the previous two worksheets, actually the previous three, so we can look at our sales across the country, we can look at our best-selling items, and we can look at the profit per item across the whole country. Now what I like about my dashboard is you can do a couple of things here. If you want to interact and look at the state of Texas, you can see what is the greatest selling or the best selling item and the most profitable items for the state. Let's check out my hometown of Arkansas. Windows and doors are the highest selling item, but profit-wise, belt sanders are the most profitable. We continue along this, we can look at Oregon, Washington, and although nationally we can see what our best-selling items are, and the profits are very similar, as you drill down to each state, it changes quite a bit. So next we'll move on to the story. So I'm starting my story again by showing you that there's a possibility that there's errors in our data that could impact our results. So here I called it the data to be verified. You can drill down by different items and see if there's any outliers. Like here, the average profit is $7,000, but the maximum profit is $31,000. So why such a difference? Is bad numbers in here, or is there an actual difference in the profit made by the same item in the same state? So we move on, we see item profit across the U.S. So again, we're showing the regional profits broken down by department, year, and item sold. You can also look and see the quantity of items sold. So again, average profit per state, items sold, units sold. So here we can show nationally certain items sell better than others. Waterproofing is very popular, most popular item. But if we look here, the profits for those items, at least at the national level, there's not a whole lot of difference. Most of the bubbles are very similar in size. This next pane is important because the previous pane could be misleading because you're looking at the data at a national level. So across the nation, things kind of average out. Profits are very similar. But if you drill down at the state level, so in this case we have Florida, you can look and see waterproofing is by far the best-selling item. But looking at it on a profit basis, we're not making that much profit per item sold when it comes to waterproofing. So we look here, we can see for the state of Florida, waterproofing is the best-selling item. But profit-wise, it's one of the smallest items we have. And if we move on to to the next state, look at New Mexico. Interior painting is what we sell the most of by far. However, if you look at the profit side, our average profit per unit of painting is $4. It's the smallest profit visible on this map. So this display is where my recommendations are going to be coming from. We could look at it at a national level, but because the profit per items is relatively the same on average, a national approach is not going to help us here. We want to look at it per state and focus on the least profitable items per state. And as you go from state to state, there can be a significant difference between what is profitable and what is not. So to help with that, across all items, we want to look at quantity sold and profit margin. If we look at improving our profit margin, what we can do is reach out to our vendors, see if by increasing the quantities purchased on our end, if we can get bulk discounts. What we can also do is reach out to multiple vendors that supply similar items and see if we can't create competition between our vendors to see who can supply us at the best price. I really enjoyed working with Tableau. It's really great. Trying to analyze data using Excel. There's lots of tools. It works very well. But it's hard to get a good graphical representation of the data. With Tableau, it was really easy. You just start dragging your items into the worksheet and see how the data pops up. You can drill down further to see how you want to look at percentages, sums, averages. I'm really thinking about downloading a trial copy at work and see how it goes. We use SQL database to track water flows and cost per gallon based on chlorine, electrical usage, machine maintenance. And I think putting it in Tableau, I might get some really good insights out of it. So in conclusion, this was actually a lot of fun. I'm not thrilled with the video recording software because this is take 5072, but overall, had a lot of fun.